What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the April 29, 2023 edition of the SmackDown LowDown, the one and only newsworthy show of the year for this show, along with Raw Talk this coming Tuesday, as they featured the fallout from Night 1 of the WWE Draft and supplemental picks being made. So it was like the equivalent of the old supplemental draft on WWE.com back in the day. We got that here on the SmackDown Lowdown, all the free agents from the Night 1 pool that went undrafted on Friday during SmackDown. We found out where a lot of those people are headed, Raw and SmackDown. We had various call-ups here in the SmackDown Lowdown, even more than on SmackDown itself, some notable names in there as well, and people declaring, I guess, themselves as free agents, I guess either because they wanted to, per their manager, or just because they didn't, I guess just because they weren't picked. We'll get into all of that here on the show. First and foremost, no Jackie Redmond this week. She's a big, hockey fan, draft fan, whatever. She wasn't even here for the draft show. I think she was busy with other commitments. She was replaced on this episode for this week by Scott Stanford. They open up the episode recapping the new rosters we saw from SmackDown from Night 1 of the WWE Draft. And we also quickly found out who was going to Raw and who was going to SmackDown per the free agents from Friday. Now, this is not everyone. There were more picks made throughout the show. This is only part of them. This is only the first half. So we found out that going to SmackDown is all of Hit Row. They were remaining on Friday nights. No other SmackDown picks, and you also have to remember, SmackDown got way more people during the televised draft than Raw on Friday, because they selected more teams and stables. Raw, at the end of the day, needs more people, and they reiterated that multiple times here on the show, because it's a 3-hour show compared to 2. Another reason why Raw should be 2 hours to make it more even, but whatever. Raw needs more picks, so it makes more sense. So that's why Raw got a ton of picks on the show, to kind of fill out their undercard and whatnot. So SmackDown got Hit Row. Raw got the Viking Raiders, so they're moving from SmackDown to Raw. They got Candice LeRae and Dexter Lumis. So as long as, I don't know why he wouldn't, as long as Johnny goes to Raw, it looks like we're getting Lumis, probably Gargano, Indy, and LeRae all on Raw. An entire Way reunion, probably with the exception of Austin Theory, who's likely going to SmackDown. He shouldn't be a part of it anyway. But it looks like we are getting a Way reunion on Raw, which is pretty cool. And the Maximum Male Models, all 3 members remaining on Raw. They just moved from SmackDown, so that makes the most sense. We'll get back to the other picks in a moment. The recap, the Zelina Vega win over Sonya Deville from SmackDown. We hear from Rhea Ripley here on the show, alongside Megan Moran. Rhea says that, listen, I understand I'm the favorite. I will be winning at Backlash. I will emerge victorious still as the SmackDown Women's Champion. Zelina Vega cannot keep evading me. She cannot keep running away and escaping my wrath. And she says, regardless of where she ends up in the draft on Night 2, coming on Monday, she will be a champion no matter what. And interestingly, she did not mention the rest of Judgment Day. Not that she did. If she did, that it would automatically indicate they're sticking together. But it sounds like they might be moving Rhea away from the other members of the group. And you can't say, oh, well, she's being drafted separately because she was, champions have to be on their own. Well, not necessarily. Roman Reigns was with Solo and Paul Heyman in the draft, and he's the world fucking champion. So, Rhea probably could have technically been with the rest of Judgment Day. It sounds like they might be splitting them here in the draft, which is very interesting. So we'll see what happens on Monday. Back in the studio, they preview the Rhea Ripley-Zelina Vega match for next weekend at Backlash for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Camp mentions that Vega's only gotten 2 other singles championship opportunities in WWE. She is a former women's tag team champion. She won the Queen's Crown tournament a couple of years ago. But the only other 2 opportunities she's gotten at a singles championship in WWE, I don't think she was ever in the 24/7 title mix, not that it matters. She faced Asuka on back-to-back nights, I think, for the Raw Women's Championship back in 2020. She lost both opportunities, obviously, but she's improved since then, and, I like Zelina, so, the match should be cool, and she's going to be competing in Puerto Rico for the first time. Her native, I don't know if she's from there necessarily or has family, or she has ties to Puerto Rico, so it's cool that she's going to be competing there. After that, we found out the free agents from Night 1 of the draft. These people were not drafted by either brand. Omos and MVP. Now, they said here that MVP negotiated for Omos to be a free agent to, and I quote, increase his visibility on both brands. If that means Omos will be appearing on both Raw and SmackDown, that is fucking awful. So I really hope that's not the case. Omos really isn't that great. Listen, he's improved. I saw what Road Dogg say the other day. I saw what he said. He's better than Andre the Giant and all this other shit. One, no, he is not. He is not better than Big Show. I like Omos. He seems like a really nice guy. That is comical. He has not had the best string of luck lately. He is going to be facing Rollins at Backlash. He lost to Brock Lesnar back at WrestleMania. I don't really give a fuck where Omos ends up. He'll probably, I don't even know. Raw, SmackDown, to me, it doesn't even matter. The guy's just not that good. I want to see more MVP, but Omos just is not good. Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler, both free agents. Now, they mentioned the thing about MVP, that he wanted Omos to be a free agent. He negotiated that for Omos, interestingly. Ali and Ziggler probably are just free agents because they weren't picked by either team. So they're the last kids picked from the fucking bench. They weren't picked at all, actually. So Ali, I can't really be surprised. Maybe they're letting him go finally. They let Roderick Strong go, and I heard his contract may not have been up until 2024. Now he's in AEW. Ali's been on TV a lot more lately, but it's just like, what do you even do with the guy? The positively Ali shit, I mean, he's on the show a lot lately, but does he still want his release? I mean, I'm kind of confused on what his status is. And traditionally, if you go undrafted, typically that means they don't have plans for those people and they're getting fired. So Ali might be getting let go. I'm not sure. I would fear for Dolph. If I was Dolph, I wouldn't pick up my phone. I don't think Dolph is getting fired, but I was really surprised. Why the fuck would you not draft Dolph Ziggler? I mean, the guy means absolutely nothing. The lows we have reached for Dolph to not even be drafted, not even on TV, but to be drafted at all, is hysterical. I mean, the guy has fallen far. I expected Corbin, and he probably still will, end up in that same spot where Corbin will go undrafted, but you can't even go to NXT. Ziggler was already in NXT last year. They wrapped up that run pretty quickly. He won the NXT title. He lost the NXT championship. What more is there for this guy to do? Unless he becomes a coach or something. I mean, Ziggler is, I don't even know. Unless he's on his way out, I thought that was just weird. And then also in the free agent list, Von fucking Wagner. This was amazing. Von Wagner also is not very good at all. He has improved, but he's not that good. He's been doing a storyline in NXT recently where he's been losing a lot. Robert Stone said that he would leave him if he kept losing and didn't open up. And he did leave him because Von Wagner lost to like Tyler Bate or something. And then he opened up to him on NXT this week or last week, I think, and then Robert Stone took him back. So I don't know if Robert Stone will be with Von Wagner. Probably not. That's even worse because Von Wagner can't talk. The guy is just not good. He's not main roster. I mean, I figured he'd be headed to the main roster at some point. He's been on main event a lot. He was almost penciled in for a main roster call-up, I think a year or two ago, actually, in late 2021. Thank God that didn't happen. But he's still not even remotely ready now. The guy's just not that good. He's not interesting. Who cares? So he didn't get drafted necessarily, but he is a free agent that would be signing with either Raw or SmackDown. Hopefully he just goes undrafted and ends up on fucking main event. Who knows? Back in the studio, they recap the triple threat tag team match from SmackDown. That saw the Profits beat Ricochet, Braun, and LWO in a triple threat tag team match. Very fun stuff there. We hear from Shinsuke Nakamura backstage alongside Megan Moran. He says that he wants to finish his bad blood with Karrion Kross. They're going to have their match on SmackDown next week. He understands that Kross wants to let out his frustration on him, and Shinsuke just says that he's ready. And Megan also brought up, which I was hoping they would mention on SmackDown, that it's going to be Nakamura's first time on Raw. He's been with WWE in the main roster since 2017. He's been on SmackDown this entire time. He's never before been a member officially of the Raw roster, so that's pretty cool. They preview Nakamura and Kross for next Friday's SmackDown. I would draft Kross to Raw too, to join Nakamura. I think Kross could use the fresh start, because if he stays on SmackDown, he ain't getting a fucking push with Roman Reigns being champion. I'll tell you that much right now. Some more picks here. This was the last round of picks. We had the picks earlier, some free agents, and now more picks. SmackDown, the only pick that SmackDown got here was Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans remaining put on SmackDown. Again, who gives a shit? Raw got a number of people. Raw got Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville. I thought Chelsea Green might go undrafted, and then she would have to say, she would have to go be a Karen about it and go complain to Adam Pearce about not being drafted. But she got drafted to Raw, so Chelsea remaining put on Raw. Sonya, I think, was on SmackDown. She was on both brands all the time anyway, but she's going to Raw now. Natalya moving from SmackDown to Raw. Now, we had 3 call-ups here. For Apollo Crews, technically it's not a call-up, but he was in NXT previously. Apollo Crews coming back to the main roster. He is going to Monday nights. They should have just said he's getting drafted to main event, because that's exactly where he's going to be. I'll get back to Crews in a second. Zoe Stark and J.D. McDonough also being called up, the former Jordan Devlin, to the Raw roster. So I thought that was really cool. And JD McDonough commented on his call-up. We heard from him, which that was nice. He just said he's been doing this for a long time, and he wants to be the Triple Crown champion, Grand Slam champion, blah, blah, blah. So for the picks here, Evans, or rather Green and DeVille, Evans, that all made sense. So Cruz, Natalia, who gives a shit, Cruz, Stark, and McDonough. Cruz is an interesting one. Not that he hasn't had a lot of luck in NXT. I thought he had a nice rehab run in NXT after the whole, dumb accent shit, which is actually getting talked about a lot more now because the whole lawsuit with WWE and the racial stuff, which is interesting. He went back to NXT, dropped the whole gimmick he was doing previously with Dabba-Kato, who actually beat him recently. His whole goal for being in NXT was to capture the championship he never won, that being the NXT championship. And he actually failed because he went for the championship at, I think it was Deadline, and lost. So he had the feud with Grayson Waller. He didn't really do a lot when he first got there, but he feuded with Waller, beat him in Halloween Havoc, lost to Breaker at Deadline, lost to Hayes a couple of times, including at the February Vengeance show. And I don't think he was even on Stand and Deliver. He lost to Dabba-Kato right before that show, so he wasn't even on that special, I think. And then he lost to Dijak, I think, a week and a half ago in NXT. So the writing probably should have been on the wall that he didn't really have much story left to tell in NXT aside from putting people over. So it makes sense that he would go back to the main roster. I'm just kind of worried for him. I mean, at this point, I'm surprised Cruz is even employed. I hate to say that. He's a really nice guy. I like Apollo Crews. But if they don't have any plans for him, and maybe they will, maybe they'll push him on Raw. Maybe they'll push him back in the mid-card where he belongs. But he's been on the main roster and in the company for so fucking long, they've just never really figured out what to do with him. I don't know what's going on with him. Zoe Stark and JD McDonough, two great call-ups. McDonough is a polarizing one, understandably, but he's a really good talent. He's another guy that wasn't really going to do much else in NXT. He's been on the NXT brand now since the summer. Before that, he was in NXT UK for many years. If JD McDonough gets called up and Tyler Bate does not, I will be upset because I like McDonough, but Bate should have been up years ago. McDonough has been ready for a long time. He's lost every opportunity he's had in NXT. He got 2 shots at the NXT Championship, lost. He lost recently to Carmelo Hayes, I think. He's gotten a lot of number one contenders matches. He was fighting for the North American Championship at one point, and he's lost every fucking time. So it was about time that he probably got called up. That one makes sense. Zoe Stark has actually really grown on me. She's quite good. She's gotten a lot better as a character, as a heel. So, and she was also main roster bound. She's lost a lot lately. She lost to Indy a couple of weeks ago. She lost to Roxanne Perez last week. So she was headed to Raw or SmackDown. Raw's a good fit for her. They could use her on the experience side. Will she be competing for the championship? Probably not. The fact they put her on the same show as Indy is interesting because, again, they just had a match recently. I thought they would put her on an opposite brand as her, considering SmackDown, the only women's call-up they got were Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and I assume they'll be a tag team. So I probably would have put Stark on SmackDown, but regardless, glad you got called up. To round out the show here, they recap the Undisputed Tag Team title main event, won by, obviously, Owens and Zayn to retain the tag titles. We hear from Owens and Zayn here on the show. Zayn says that there really isn't much else to say. They've said everything they wanted to say, and they did exactly what they said they would do in beating the Usos again. Owens said that he's basically sick of talking, but he will say this: it doesn't matter where they go in the draft on night 2 of the draft on Monday. They are the best tag team in WWE and shine will, wherever they go, Raw or SmackDown, regardless. And then he goes off on a rant, saying that Sikoa, regardless of what his name suggests, he's never solo, actually. He's always with the Usos or the Bloodline or whatever. And Owens just goes off and he says he calls him an ass, and not an asshole, but he calls him an ass, and he knows that they have to bleep him, so he says ass again, and they bleep him again. It was incredible. And then Zayn's like, well, and then he goes, oh, I got to go ride solo, Owens says, and that's what the meaning of the word is. And then he walks off, and Sami says, well, not actually, because he's going to be riding with me. So that was amazing. This was actually the best SmackDown LowDown I think I've either ever seen, if not seen, in a long time. And they had a decent show last week as well, so I hope they can keep it up, but the newsworthy stuff probably stops here. They also preview the 6-man tag team match for Backlash, Owens, Zayn, and Riddle against the Bloodlines, Usos, and Solo. And they hype up night 2 of the draft for Monday. So again, a big show here for SmackDown LowDown. We found out a lot about the picks for Raw and SmackDown, some free agents as well. SmackDown basically on the show got Hit Row and Lacey Evans. Hardly a winning combo for the Blue Brand. Raw got a lot of people, but they missed a lot of people in the televised draft on Friday, and there were 3-hour shows, so it makes sense. Not any game-changing picks, but some pretty significant ones with, Stark and McDonough. I thought that was cool. Ali, Ziggler, Von Wagner, Omos in free agency. Again, who could possibly give a fuck? At least there's not anyone. I mean, Ziggler's so beyond damage, like who could even care? But it's interesting that they didn't, like, sometimes they'll have some big names go undrafted. Like, I remember one year, like, Andrade went undrafted. I mean, it was because he ended up leaving anyway, but I'm like, why the fuck would he go undrafted? Asuka, same thing. Like, why would she go undrafted? That makes no sense. I think she was inactive at the time, but anyway, they didn't do that this year, at least not so far. Those are all people I don't really give a shit about anyway, so the fact they went undrafted is perfectly fine with me. More draft coverage coming to WrestleRant.com. I'll have my full breakdown of every pick made on Friday and on this show on Saturday, coming at some point, probably tomorrow. There's a lot of picks I have to go through, so more analysis on that end coming in a couple days. Again, probably tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And then night 2 starts up on, this was night 1.5. Technically, night 2 starts up on Monday with Raw, and then more picks made on Raw Talk after the show that night on Peacock. If you're wondering, I couldn't watch SmackDown LowDown, where can I watch the picks? I don't really mention it here on this show because no one really watches this show, obviously. SmackDown LowDown, that is. They put it up on Peacock. They don't air it live. It gets put up usually on Saturday afternoons around noon. They didn't have a set schedule originally, but they do now. And it's been going up around noon for the last a while now, probably the last year or so. So you could watch the full show there. And Raw Talk will air after Raw on Peacock at 11:05, I believe, live. That'll be a live show, and you can watch it on demand right after the fact. Thank you guys for checking out the show here today. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the following along in the draft coverage. It's very exciting stuff, although a lot of these picks don't really matter. It's WWE, but I like following along. It's cool. And be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, folks. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.